welcome back to my channel. Today I will be teaching you how to paint a beach scene with a sunrise and a night scene with trees and stars or snow, depending on how you look at it. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. If you would like more details about these paintings, head over to my blog, Reflecting Creation, for more details. The link will be in the description box below, as well as all of the materials I will be using for this painting. Alright, let's get to it. Before we begin painting, I'm going to show you the supplies that I'll be using in today's paintings. I'm going to be using this journal by Arteza. It's a great journal. It's cold pressed paper. So far, I really like it. It does buckle just a little bit when you put too many layers on, but nothing that I don't think that a binder clip can't fix. So far I really like it. I just love the journal part of it. I like this part that really can hold it down when my paper does start to buckle. So this is the paper I will be using. I will be using washi tape to separate my my paintings. I'll be doing 2 separate paintings. And then for the first painting, I'm going to be using Winsor yellow, cobalt blue, burnt umber, which I had to cut open my tube to get the rest of my paint out. So burnt umber, and then just a little bit of ivory black, just to darken my burnt umber a little bit for our last layer. And then for the second painting, I'm going to be using ultramarine blue, opera rose, Chinese white, and ivory black. The brushes I will be using are Princeton Snap Brush. These are my favorite round brushes. I'm going to be using a medium round brush. I believe it was size 6. It's kind of come off by now, but I believe it was size 6. And then I'm going to be using a size 0 round brush as well. And then I'm going to be using this 3 centimeter flat brush. I will have the link to all of these products listed below in the description if you would like to check them out and do this painting along with me with the exact same materials. All right, let's get started. We're going to begin by using magnesium blue. I'm going to load up our flat 3 centimeter brush and begin painting it across the top. Fill that into about only where there's 1/3 of the way left. My blue is turning out really light, so I'm going to just add more of the magnesium blue over into my palette on the side where you can't see, and then I'm going to apply it more, see how it's darker. So to get your paint darker, remember it's more paint and less water to get that dark color. And don't overwork your paper. The paper I have allows me to go across it a little bit more than normal, but the more you go across, the more likely it's going to start buckling or tearing. So just be cautious of that as you paint with your watercolor papers. And then over here in this palette, I have my lemon yellow, and I'm going to start at the bottom, and then I'm going to go up into the blue. See how it created just a little bit of green? That's okay, and I like that, but if I started at the blue, the entire bottom would be all that green color. I'm going to go back in with my magnesium blue right here. Just carry that up. Now what you're going to do is grab your paper towel, wrap it around your index finger, and find the center and soak up all that paint. Just press down, don't move it around, just press down, up, and you see how I have a circle there now? There's a little bit left at the bottom. And then you're going to take a dry round brush, and you have to work quickly. So while this is wet, I'm going to take my dry round brush And I'm going to start where my sun is, and I'm going to drag the paint away. I'm going to dry it. I'm going to drag the paint away again. It's picking up the paint. See? Just going to move my sleeve back. You're just going to repeat this process until you reach the other side of the sun. It's best to start where your circle is for the sun, so it's coming into an even spot. And there we have sun rays. If you see your paint starting to bleed in, you can go around. Right here, I can tell I have a lot of paint on the edges. I'm just gonna soak it up a little bit, not all the way. You can also do that just with your paper towel, just soak it up a little bit. I can just tell. And there you go, we have sun rays. While the left side dries, we're gonna move on to the second side of our painting, where we're gonna do a night sky, a night scene. So what you're first gonna do is you're gonna load up your flat brush with just water, and you're going to, oops, I have a little bit of paint on mine. You're going to paint in the entire rectangle area that we have taped off. Just a nice glaze of white where if you look at it from the side, especially if there's light on it, you'll be able to see a nice sheen. You don't want it to where it's pooling, just to where you see a nice shine. Ah, I had paint on mine. All right, we're gonna start by filling the top part in with ultramarine blue. So just create a nice thick wash over to the side and begin painting it in like we did before. If there's a lot of paint on your brush, the best thing to do is just dab it off on a paper towel like this, to where your paint isn't going to be pooling on your paper. And then once you reach about halfway, dip your brush into pink. Rinse your brush off first, you don't want it loaded up with blue. And then dip it into whatever pink that you have. You can darken your pink with just a little bit of green. It'll make it a more darker, richer shade than a bright pink. And we're going to blend these two together. It's okay if it turns into purple in the middle. That's how I want it. I like how this looks. I definitely want it to be darker, and since it's very wet right now, I don't want to overwork it. I'm going to let this side dry as well. All right, now we're going to paint an ocean underneath our sunset. So load up your flat brush with the same blue we used for the top. Try to make the consistency of this just slightly thicker than the top, just to kind of give some variation to our painting. All right, we're not going to paint in the entire bottom. So just paint in most of the left side. We're gonna have the ocean over here, and then over here we're going to have a mountain / ocean line, like a beach. So we're just gonna do it kind of like this. Perfect. And just rinse off your brush and we will wait for that to dry. Let's move on to our night landscape. Fill up your flat brush with your dark ultramarine blue. Try to make this very thick. I think my first wash turned out very light, so I definitely want to darken it up. We're just going to darken it up with the same colors. We're going to use the pink color that we made with a little bit of green to darken it, and then we're going to be using the ultramarine blue, a very thick wash. So we're just going to repaint over. See how much darker this is than when we did it earlier? This is just going to help it look more like nighttime rather than just a light wash. Paint that down almost halfway. Clean your brush. And then fill it up with your pink color. Before I go into the blue, I just want to make sure this is very deep. And then I'm going to load my brush up just a little bit more. And then I'm going to combine the two up here. And now what I'm going to do, while this is all still wet on the right side, I'll let my flat brush soak for a little bit. I'm going to grab my medium round brush, dip it into your thick wash of ultramarine blue, and we're just going to lightly tap in some darkness right here. Kind of just blending it out. I went from tapping to just kind of swiping. I think that's going to give it a more of a evening look and kind of blend it out a little bit better. I'm going to do that all the way down. You'll see how it's not as on my brush as it was up top, so there's less on the bottom. And then I'm going to rinse off my brush and then load it up with our pink color. And I'm going to do the same thing coming up into the blue, really just blending the two into each other. Load mine up just a little bit more. And see how there's just a little bit less as I get to the top. I like that a lot better than what we had earlier. Oops. And if you do something like this, like I just did, I swiped a little too hard, you can clean off your brush. Make sure it's not too wet. Make sure it's wet though. And reactivate that. Then completely clean it. Have it completely dry. And just clean that up. Pull it off the page. It's basically the same technique we used with the sun rays. Just getting rid of that color that we don't want. All right, now we're gonna go in on our sunset with a mountain. We're gonna start with little mountains in the back. We're gonna have a nice big one and then just a shoreline of the beach. Dip your round brush into burnt umber. We're gonna create a nice medium wash, meaning we don't want it too transparent, but again, we don't want it too thick. Remember, the closer something is to you, the darker it's going to be. Sorry. Since this is going to be a beach, we're going to have brown mountains, kind of like more sand looking. We're going to start right in the center of our sun, and we're just going to kind of go up. Just make a little wavy mountain. I think I'm actually going to go all the way across my sun a little bit farther over. I want it to go out into the ocean. Bring it up a little. And you can kind of see my blue right there. I'm going to dab a little bit more burnt umber right on that section, just to kind of mask that blue.
So I'm not going to be too worried about coming back in with another coat. Yep, I really like how that looks. All right, let's move on to our night sky. What we're going to do first with this is we're going to do 2 or 3 mountains. I'm not sure yet. We're going to see how the first 2 look, and then we'll go from there. Now we're going to move on to our night scene. And we are going to be doing 3 rows of trees. Now, it's nighttime, so the trees would appear dark. In my separate palette, I'm going to load up a section with my black. I want these, my black layers to be thick. I do want to save the darkest, thickest black layer for the very last one. So I'm just going to load it up. Basically, it's going to be a really dark gray to begin with, and then it's just going to keep getting darker until we're done with our 3 layers of trees. Since we have a blue and pink sky, I am going to add just a little bit of ultramarine blue in with our black. A little bit more than that because I can barely tell. Just to kind of make it blend in with everything. It doesn't gonna seem so random. All right. I'm using my small size 0 brush. This is more what I like to call, especially if you go over to my blog, you'll see me talk about a small detail brush. And this is what I'm talking about when I say that. All right, we're gonna start halfway down our painting. Just find the halfway point, and then you can just kind of find your rhythm with this, with painting trees. I usually like to draw a line just so I have an idea of where I'm going, and then I just start drawing the little branches coming off. And then as I work my way down, they slowly start fanning out. I'm going to add a little bit more black and a little bit more ultramarine blue just to make this a little bit thicker. I think that looks really, really light. And you kind of just tap that in since we already put that in place. All right, for the rest of this row layer, I am going to switch over and I'm just going to speed through it. As I go through painting these trees, you are going to see me having a variation in sizes. Some are going to be taller, where some are going to be shorter, and it's just going to give some more depth and texture to this painting.
Now that
This side is dry, we're gonna add a little bit more, just a little bit of black and a little bit more burnt umber into our already brown mixture, and we're gonna add another mountain layer. I have a lot of paint on my brush, so I'm just dabbing it. Usually if you can tell, if your paint kind of separates like that, you have a lot of paint on your brush. So it's good to get that off so it doesn't overbleed onto your painting. All right, now we are going to slightly go over our first mountain. See how transparent that is? I do not want that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a lot more burnt umber into my mixture. I want it to have a lot more paint than I do water, so it's not so translucent. I don't want to be able to see my other mountain peeking through behind it, through the paint. And you can tell right there how it covers it up a lot more. I'm going to add just a little bit more, just a little bit of black and burnt umber, just to kind of even out that color a little bit. Dab my brush off, and I'm going to go back in. I'm going to just tap, since my paint is already wet. If I keep doing brush strokes, I might overwork my paper and cause a tear, and I don't want that. With watercolor, I'd have to start completely over, and that is not the most fun thing to do when you've already got this far. All right, I'm very happy with that. So now we have 2 mountains, and we need to wait for this one to dry, and then we'll come back. All right, we are going to add our last mountain layer to our beach/sunset. We're going to do our last mountain, and then the rest of the white area is going to turn into the beach shoreline. We're going to use that same mixture, and we're just going to do what we did before, and we're going to add more burnt umber and more black to this mixture. We want it to be thick, so we want more paint than water. You can always test this out on a scrap sheet of paper to make sure that it is the right shade before you put it on your painting. Or if it's too light, when you do put it on your painting, you can just wait for it to completely dry and then go back in afterwards. We're gonna start a good chunk of the way down, about halfway from where our last mountain was in the bottom. I'm gonna start, actually, we're gonna go about a third of the way down from our mountain. I'm gonna start far out, and we're gonna go up. Our mountain is gonna go all the way over and then back down. My mountain is definitely too transparent right now, so I'm either going to tap in some darker color and see if that'll fix it, and if that doesn't work, I'm just going to wait for it to dry, and I'll add another layer to make it nice and dark. Tapping in the darker color, like I said. So far I'm liking how that's covering it up. Okay, and we're gonna let that dry, and I probably will be going back over it with another layer. All right, let's move back over here to our trees and our night sky. We are going to add another layer of black trees in front of this, coming downward. So I'll probably start halfway down these trees and just do another row of trees, and then when I'm done with the trees, I'll fill the rest in with that same paint mixture. All right, we're getting close to finished with our sea and sunset. We're going to finish in by painting in the shoreline. We're going to use the same brown we used at the beginning of our mountain, so we're going to just have a lighter brown mixture in our palette. So you can use what you just did on the mountain, the biggest mountain, and just dilute it with water to create a lighter, sandier look. Again, it's always good to test it out on a scrap piece of paper before you put it down. So I'm going to test mine, and I definitely think it needs more brown. It has a very muddy look. Just to rich it up a little bit. And we'll test it again. Perfect. Okay. So now what we're going to do is I already have the waves in place as they come up to the shore. So wherever you see it indenting in, just have your shore kind of angle away, and when it comes back toward the water, you go in and then back out, just kind of waving along with it. Leaving a good amount of white space in between the shore and the water. You do want it to kind of curve in to where the mountain is. Then I'm just going to add a little bit more brown into my mixture, and I'm just going to dab it along this area, because remember, as something gets closer to you, it gets darker, and we want to have that illusion here with our painting. So I'm just going to blend that in so it's not a harsh definition. There we go. All right, we are going to finish our night sky painting by adding stars to the top of the sky. So all you're going to do, this is super easy and it's one of my favorite parts of using watercolor. All you're going to do is take your white paint, which I'll be using this white paint right here in my palette. You are just going to take, I like a medium round brush, and you are just going to load up your round brush with a lot of water and a lot of paint. And then grab a scrap piece of paper that you don't care about. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to grab two. I'm going to have one. I'll just use, let's see, I'll use this. You want to cover up if you have a painting right next to it. And then I'm going to put this page right like this over the painting part that I do not want to have stars on it. Stars are going to be sitting on top of the trees. And then I'm just going to take my white brush loaded up with my water and white paint, and then I'm just going to tap. I need more water. I'm just going to tap over. It might be easier like this. Just going to tap over my finger. So it can either look like snow or stars, depending. You can also use, instead of doing this technique, if you want, you can use a white ink pen to just put in the stars where you want them, or draw, or you can use a white acrylic paint. It all depends on your preference. I personally love the splatter technique, so that's something that I use a lot. And there we have it, our evening sky and our beach sunset.